possible. So the model you see in front of you shows exactly how Karnak was in ancient time. And you can compare the size. Karnak, much bigger than any temple we're going to visit together. As I mentioned, coming to here, it took them 2,000 years adding buildings.
دلوقتي في معبد الكرنك هنا.
أول مكان هنقابله في المكان ده مكان مختصر، ده كان بناء إلى Yeah, that's cool. Let's try to be. I'm horrible at that.
Yes, you are.
You are.
Let me check it. What does it say here?
It says just
other side of the temple. That's from their time. So back then, they always built mud brick wall around the temple. Around that mud brick wall, they had a canal. So during flood time, water will come into the canal and not inside the temple. So this is a way for them to protect the temple from the flood. No flood anymore after 1960, the high dam, Aswan. But before that, before 1960, it used to flood every year. So imagine the wall was not in good shape to protect the temple from the flood, and already the canal was buried because people lived nearby. As you see the modern houses, how close they are from the temple. So they buried the canal, they destroyed parts of the mud brick wall. So the temple, Karnak, Luxor, and all the temples in Egypt suffered a lot from the flood every year. And we know about an earthquake that took place in 27 BC. And because of that earthquake, we lost many temples, the west bank of Luxor, and we lost many buildings inside here, inside Karnak. The way they built the mud brick wall, we will see it much better when we go to Ep.2, the day after tomorrow in the morning. They built it in sections. It doesn't go straight, it waves like that. It goes concave and convex, like zigzag, because for them the beginning was water. So to give you the feeling, seeing that mud brick wall from distance, like water going around the temple, to give you the feeling that the temple was the island of creation.
So they build the wall like waves, concave and convex and zigzag. We don't see figures. If you look at the walls, the two towers on the right and left side here, no carvings, no figures, no colors. We'll see more figures and colors when we go inside the temple. Because this part unfinished. Unfinished, that's why nothing on the walls.
No carvings.
No carvings. You see the sphinxes on the right and left side. Like the one in Giza. Same body, but not the same head.
Yeah.
If you look at the heads, you see ram head, not human head. All the sphinxes they made in ancient time, same body. Mighty, powerful like lion, but they changed the head. There is one sphinx in Ramesseum, the west bank of Luxor, jackal head, like Anubis, the god of mummification. In many museums, sphinxes from Egypt, one of them, monkey head on lion body, crocodile head on monkey body, lion head on monkey body. So always lion body. Same body, but they change the head. The animal form for Amun-Ra, the sun god, the one they worshipped here in Karnak, was ram. That's why the sphinx here has the head of Amun-Ra as ram on lion body. So all the sphinxes same body, but they change. Okay? We will go together inside. We'll have many stops inside here, talking about what we see around, and then free time for you that you can walk around, take more pictures, and after that, our meeting will be here. Just remember here, when you cross the gates, I will be waiting for you here to go back together to the van to take us to Luxor. I will tell you when exactly when we finish our time. Okay?
الجو هنا حر جدا بالمقارنة بالقاهرة.
يلا يا جماعه
نشرح مصري وبعد كده عربي وبعد كده انجليزي. تمام.
بشرح انجليزي بس هم مصريين في واحد مصري.
شرفت. تذكرة. حط جيبك. حط جيبك. هلا عشان تاخذني.
تيكت. Aldo?
Hi. Hello from Luxor.
Yeah.
Hey.
ده مصري عادي خلاص.
Oh, he's over there. I see him.
طب في أعملة الناحية دي وأعملة الناحية دي.
في النص وفي جوه في 134 عمود.
يعني دي طبعا يعني عاوزة أقول دي بنسميها إيه ودي بنسميها إيه. ده بقى والأول.
No one, even the king, no one was allowed to live inside the temple. They used to open the main gate for everyone to come inside for different festivals, but not to live inside the temple. If you are a farmer, if you are a worker, if you live nearby, you can come here to this open court for all the festivals. But when you see any building with a roof, it is not for everyone. You have to show that you are high official, governor, priest, to open this gate for you to go further inside. The end, just for the king to go inside where they had the statue of the god. The king not here, so they had high priest on behalf of his majesty to perform different rituals and festivals. So all the gates you see, whatever the size of them, had doors made out of wood, cedar wood or sycamore. Cedar wood from Lebanon or sycamore from Egypt. And they covered the doors with gold and silver. They had beautiful carvings on them, colors. We know that because we found the designs of them on stones, papyrus, but we don't have them anymore because they were covered with gold and silver, so broken and stolen later on. We are lucky that we still have unfinished buildings. That way we can imagine how they did it in ancient time. To build a tower like that, we still have the answer how they built that using big
stones.
blocks. Sandstone, by the way, most of the buildings you see around here, sandstone, soft, easy, not like granite. Granite is much harder than sandstone. Sandstone, when we sail the day after tomorrow between Edfu and Komombo, just before Aswan, halfway between Edfu and Komombo, there is a place called Jabal al-Silsila. This is where they cut sandstone from. Limestone, just like the stone they used to build the pyramids in Giza, the west bank of Luxor, all the mountains you see, the other side, all the way north, limestone. Granite, black, red, both of them, Aswan, where they cut granite from. So sandstone between Edfu and Komombo, granite from Aswan, and limestone here, all the way north, limestone everywhere. You see the mud bricks forming ramps. So now you can imagine how they did it. They had mud ramps, they had wooden sledges, blocks on them, workers, strong workers, ropes and animals to slide up to build layer above layer. It doesn't matter the shape of the block. They used to build, then shaping after that. So please, if you come to my side and look at the column in the corner. You see the one in the corner? If you compare it to the rest of the columns, this one unfinished. So all of them used to be like the one in the corner. So they used to build layer above layer, whatever the shape. Then shaping the column will be from top to bottom. And after that, the carving on the columns or the ceiling or whatever the height using wooden scaffolds.
So they did the same to this, right?
Yes.
They finished the.
So afterwards, after they finish the building, it will be smooth. Then they will have wooden scaffolds to do the carvings and the colors on the top of the figures. after that.
So these mud walls, are they survived since then?
Yes.
But how do
By the way, it
usually
used to be much bigger to reach the height of
the
tower,
whatever
but
they're
part of the
building.
excavation, the modern days, the team of archaeology working here, they excavated most of the area here, but they left that for us to be the answer how they did it in ancient time. You know, nowadays every building must have foundation underground. So in ancient time, all the buildings had foundation. And please count 7 blocks. If you look at any tower, count 7 blocks going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see the height? Imagine the same underground.
Okay.
When you go underground, 7 layers for the foundation. And the deeper you go, the wider will be the size to be like expansion system for the movement or any earthquake. Nothing between the blocks to join them together.
Yeah, that's
Like no mortar, no cement to join the blocks together. The only technique they used in ancient times to build what we call wooden dowels. Imagine this block. I want to have another block on the top of it without using any mortar or cement. What they did, they made hole the shape of dove, tail or butterfly. And they had wood inside there. And on the top of that, they had another block with the same shape of hole to be on the top of this wooden
بيسموها عشق
Kinda like
عاشوا
Legos.
مع شو, like tongues and grooves, male and female, the same idea. So this is the only technique they used in ancient time to build.
So
Even
all
the
of these are
pyramids
built
use
in
it.
this using
Yes.
that technique.
When we go
And it's
inside
holding for this
for
long
2,000
thousands
years.
of
Looking at 2,000,
Wow.
3,000 years.
It's just,
The
even the
columns,
pyramids as well?
Even the pyramids as well.
So smart.
The sphinxes you see on this side, and we have more on the other side. And by the way, 2 years ago, they moved 4 sphinx from here to Tahrir Square. The 4 sphinxes, we have them around the obelisk in Tahrir Square.
What's the
Obelisk
name؟
is the
obelisk المسلة.
Obelisk.
المسلة اللي هي بالعربي إبرة. ما هي المسلة يعني إبرة.
Obelisk.
obelisk needle.
شفت بقى اسمها ايه؟
We saw it typed
So
out
they
in
قعدنا
the jam.
نفكر اسمها ايه بالانجلش.
They took 4 from this side. They moved them to Cairo, to Tahrir Square, to be around the obelisk.
Oh, you can see them. The red things.
Oh yeah. So originally, they used to be here. So they used to be part of the sphinxes outside the towers. But remember, they built from inside to outside. So one of the kings, to get the chance to build the 2 towers, to build the columns, and to add more buildings here, they moved for him the sphinxes to the sides to get the chance and the space to add more buildings around. So always keep in your mind, they always built from inside to outside. The columns, why we see columns everywhere? When you sail the Nile River, when we sail tomorrow, we will start leaving Luxor at 1 o'clock p.m. On the banks, you will see what? Forms. You will see palm trees, sugar cane. Back then, used to be lotus and papyrus. And the temple for them is Egypt. The design, always east and west. That's why you see 2 towers, East Bank and West Bank, and the Nile River running in between. So when you come inside any temple, what you expect seeing on the sides, flowers. So the columns showing flowers. We call the style of columns on this side, away from the Nile River, away from the center, closed papyrus, like buds with no flower, because no water for flowers. They are away from the Nile River. But near the Nile River, used to be 10 columns. We still have just one in good condition. This one, you see it bigger and you see it with open flowers. There is water here near the Nile River, more flourishing to see flowers. So always columns away from the Nile, away from the center, buds. But columns near the center, you see them with open.
Flower.
Okay? Please.
عمل ثوره وعباده الاله اتون يدعو ان هو يوقف على عباده امون را وبالتالي اتجه من لوكسور لمدينه تل العمامه المسؤوله في المنيا هي اتون وبدا ان هو طبعا يحمل مؤسسه العباده الاتونيه عباده الاله مين اتون. طبعا خلال الفتره
One is husband, one is wife, family, never four. So 3 is the answer for them. Husband, wife, and child. The husband is Amun-Ra, the god Amun-Ra, sun god. His wife, her name is Mut. Mut, M-U-T, Mut. Mut was the earth goddess. So Amun-Ra, sun. His wife Mut, earth. So think about that. If the sun god married the earth gods, the child,
everything in between.
what is in between?
The
Specific.
sky?
Something in the sky.
The mile? I don't know.
Wait, say that again.
The mountains?
Sun and earth.
Married the earth. The mountains? The limestone?
Something we see it in the sky.
Cloud moon. The moon. The moon.
The moon. The moon. Thank you. The moon. Sun, earth, and moon.
We haven't slept.
Yeah. I'm gonna try again tomorrow.
Yes, trying to get tomorrow.
After having got breakfast, maybe we'll be able to answer some of my questions. Okay, so imagine they carry boats, 3 boats, one for Amun-Ra, one for his wife, one for his son. For sure, carrying them from inside to outside, they are not going to run. they will walk in discipline, in order, and they will stop for some festivals and rituals in between. To carry the boats like that for 5-6 hours, it would be a heavy task.
Yeah.
So they carry and they rest. They carry and they rest. So to rest, this block was for the boat. Amun-Ra. His boat used to be here. If they had time to rest. They had 2 more blocks like this one. You see one on the right side, smaller than this one. We have the group standing behind it, and used to be another one on the left side. So one here in the middle, one on the right, and one on the left.
So they rest
this one for Amun-Ra, his bark to be on, and the 2 other blocks, one for her, his wife, and one for his
child.
son. So they used to have stations to rest during.
So we'll see
That's
more
festival.
like this down as we go?
Not for this distance. This one would be enough.
Okay.
But between here and Luxor, 2 miles used to have more than one.
And they
tourist
created
would be-
keep
different
going.
kinds for different.
yeah. This is
statues.
this one made out of alabaster. This is Amun-Ra. This is the most important god. But the other ones.
They got the
limestone.
nicer one. Yes.
The big one here is the main one, but you can see small one on the side. This one was built by Ramesses III, 1100 BC. The time for Ramesses III, 1100 BC. It's the same design like the big one. You see 2 towers and 1 gate, east bank, west bank, and the Nile River. You see 2 statues showing His Majesty walking.
طب ما نخش نشوفها احسن.
And then I had
شوف كلهم بيعملوا ازاي ايدهم كده. ليه؟ Why do you do
that represents
This is a symbol of power.
When you see statues of kings, sometimes you see the king walking, just like the 2 statues outside here. And when you see the king walking, always left leg forward. To show you the best side, the side of the heart. And the militaries nowadays, they always march with left leg forward. Left, right, left, right. The king was the leader of the army and always left leg forward. You see the statues here and you see the statue outside. Ramesses II outside, Ramesses III, the statues we have them around here.
بس ده شبك الهوتل.
This is all him?
All of
Just like
all
the
of all
Hotmans.
have, yeah. By the way, when you see statues of different kings, they will be almost the same features.
But this different.
Same features. Especially when we talk about the same time. Like we are talking about New Kingdom time, New Kingdom art, they will be the same. The only way
انا عارفه شكلهم من كتر ما بشوف والله
only
شكله
way-
زي تحتمس يعني.
the only way to tell this one is Ramesses, this one is Tutmosis, this one is Tutankhamun by the name. By the name. The cartouche. The name inside the oval shaped figure, we call it cartouche. This is the only way to tell us which king we see in front of us. But when we see statues, one from Old Kingdom, one from Middle Kingdom, one from New Kingdom, we can tell this one Old Kingdom art, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom.
Difference
And
in art
the,
style.
the
Exactly.
third one is different. شو؟
متكسر بس. He's the best.
بس.
متكسر. بس هم كلهم almost the same.
البادي تايبس بتبقى كلها سيميلر ما بيحطوش يعني هما بيبقى زي
big feet.
كلهم بيرفكت مفيش حد عنده كرش الوحيد the only one is Akhenaten. Akhenaten is different. His time was different. The religion, the art, everything was
احنا
different
بنفتح
during his
المتحف
time.
المصري من غير قطع كلامك. التمثالين بتوع رمسيس ما بتاع ابنه راح شايل اسمه وحط ابن عقل. يعني شايل اسمه
نفسه كان عقل.
كمان.
So this one, the king is standing like that. Nowadays we call this form, or some we call this form mummy. The king is dead.
الصوت ده
Showing the king like Osiris. He mentions the event of Osiris, Isis, Horus, and this is it. Now the gods, we worship Osiris. Right? Remember his name because he was killed, but he came back again to life. And Osiris told the Egyptians about farming, about leading animals. And crook for leading animals, and flail for the harvest, for cutting wheat and so on. So if you look at the king here, you see him holding the same two tools like Osiris. He is imitating Osiris by holding the same tools. He is Osiris, so I prefer to call this form Osirified, not mummy or dead. And the other style or the other position, you see the king as a statue showing him sitting. So sitting, standing like that, or walking left leg forward. Okay? Go this way to see more.
I think even
The statue, this one, there's one used to be on the right side, similar to this one,
Let me put.
granite. The color, we call this color red, rose, pink, granite. Another color, black. We see one statue in Luxor, in perfect condition, Ramses II, black granite. So red and black from Aswan. In ancient time, the Nile River was the way for them to transport whatever they cut from Aswan using boats sailing the Nile River from Aswan to whatever the destination after that. The Great Pyramids in Giza, the Great Pyramid for Cheops, Khufu, the burial chamber inside the pyramid, that coffin for the king, and inside the pyramid is granite. The pyramid itself is limestone, but inside the pyramid is granite. So they got that from Aswan. So whatever the distance, when you see granite anywhere, Aswan, where they cut granite from. The king is Ramesses II. Ramesses II was king for 67 years. He lived 95 years. Luxor was the capital during his time. So logic to see his name and his status everywhere. He was king for a long time. Ramesses II, what he did, that he erased names of different kings from buildings and statues to put his name on them. So when you see his name, you have to think twice to accept him to be the owner of what you see in front of you or not. The other thing about Ramesses II, that he married a lot. He had many wives from Egypt. He married from outside Egypt for political reasons. He married the sister of the king or the daughter of the king to have good relationship with this country. So he had many wives. He had many sons and daughters. He ruled for 67 years. He had many wives. So he had many mothers-in-law. But he managed to live 95 years. So he was superhero. His favorite one, yes, his first one, his beloved one, was Queen Nefertari.
She has a tomb there.
In the Valley of the Queens, the West Bank of Luxor, he made for her a very beautiful tomb. In Abu Simbel, she mentioned Abu Simbel. 2 temples were built by Ramesses. Big one for him, for Amun-Ra, to worship Amun-Ra. Small one on the side for him and his wife, Nefertari. So his beloved one, he had many of them, but his favorite one was Nefertari. In ancient language, if I want to flirt with any beautiful woman, the word beautiful in ancient language is Nefer. So Nefer, beautiful or handsome, by the way, it works for both. So Nefertari means the most beautiful one. That's her name, Nefertari. Another queen, her name similar, Nefertiti.
Yes.
Nefertiti was the wife of Akhenaten. She was the stepmother of Tutankhamun. So the time difference between them is 100 years between Nefertiti and Nefertari. The statue, the female one, between his legs is for his daughter. He married 3 of his daughters. This is one of them. Her name is Bennett Ainat. Bennett Ainat. So we have the king and his queen. We have husband and his wife. We have father and his daughter together using one single block. The statue is one block. The columns, they build them in layers. But the statues, whatever the size of them, one single block.
Yeah, I noticed that sometimes they do that when they have kids, children or whatever.
They have them around.
They're normal size, but they're still like small. Like it's, they look, the proportions are correct. They're not children, but they're like smaller.
Smaller than the size of the king.
Let's go inside.
Yeah. Around you everywhere. And the third way to show Amun Ra, if you look at the statue, the other side here, you see him as man, but look on the top of his head. He has 2 feathers on the top of his head. Nowadays we use that expression a lot. Feather in the cap, al ras risha. So Amun Ra, to heighten his prestige, they give him 2 feathers, not just one. So he is the king of the gods. So you see him as man, but with 2 feathers on the top of his head. The columns you see around here, they kept the design just like outside. The ones on the sides, you see them buds with no flower. The ones near the center, you see them open.
His head and his crown or headdress.
Please come and have a look at
Feathers. Okay? But look down here to see missing one arm. And also talking not about damage, but about oil. And also really that's all you were ready.
Okay. First of all, the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, always hair cut short, no beard.
Yeah.
But they wear wigs, they wear false beards. The kings, you see them with false beards.
False, yes.
But showing enemies, we had 2 types of enemies back then. From the south, from Nubia, they show them with different style of hair, with earring, and by features, by ethnic features like fat lips and big nose, you can tell this one is Nubian, not Egyptian. So if you look at here,
Africans.
Africans, you see this one?
Yeah.
You see that he has
Second
earring.
one,
Look at his lips, fat. By his features, you can tell this one not Egyptian. He's African. He's from Nubia, from south.
But the first one.
Look at the first one. You see him with
different.
long hair
And a beard.
and beard. He is Syrian. And when I say Syrian, ancient Syria back then, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Nahrina, Palestine, the whole area. For them, Syria. So Syria and Africa, or Syria and Nubia. What used to be here, we believe the king, statue of him, standing, sitting, showing enemies under his feet. Even their sandals. If you go to the Egyptian Museum, maybe you saw that already there, the sandals we found inside the tomb of Tutankhamun. On the sandals, showing enemies.
Yes.
For the king to be always on
He beats them.
so the king always smiting and
We saw just
defeating
like this in the
in
Egyptian
museum.
It looks almost like that. People, and even the features and body build is different than how we used to.
Show the Egyptians themselves, yeah. And look at them, you see that their arms are tied together behind their backs. So no way to attack Egypt anymore.
They are arrested.
Exactly, yeah. And the bows, you see the bows for shooting arrows. The bows are tied as well here. And they are using flowers like papyrus and lotus. So this is the way for them showing that Egypt is 134 column. The exact number doesn't mean anything.
That's just what they got to build.
Yeah. So many, like when you come, you see, wow, so many columns, so many flowers, to give you the feeling, heaven, garden, full of flowers around. Used to be sandstone roof, and they needed air and light here. So they made use of the difference between the height. The columns near the center higher than the ones on the sides, for windows to be in between. So if you look up, you see the windows on the right side. So this is the way for them for illumination, for air and light to be here during festivals. And by the amount of light coming from there, they can determine the time of festivals and rituals every day. The cartouche, I'm talking about the oval shield figure. Sometimes you see it big like that. Sometimes you see it small. Sometimes vertical, horizontal, it doesn't matter. But when you see cartouche, we call that cartouche, the name of the king inside there. And every king had two names. One is his birth name and the other one is his coronation name. Look at the cartouches and notice the depth of the carving inside them.
It's very nice.
Deeper than the rest of the carving if you look around on the columns. When you see the cartouches, the carving there deeper than the rest. Remember Ramesses II, what he did? He erased the names of kings to put his name on. So to be sure, later on, not
No one would do the same.
exactly do the same to his cartouche, he carved his name deeper than the rest of the carvings. So it's like trademark for Ramesses II. When you see carving like that, you can tell, sure, that's Ramesses. Yes. Even if you don't know how to read ancient language, when you see carving that deep, you can tell Ramesses number 2. Look at the colors. And imagine, colors used to be like that. Here and outside. Every inch used to be colored like that. Not facing the sun. This part not facing the sun. No one touching it. That's why you see
The color
still in good condition if you compare it to the rest. But when we go tomorrow to the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, I promise tomorrow will be the day to see very beautiful colors, look very fresh, as if they were made just yesterday. With the pyramid shape on the top.
Yeah.
We call them in Arabic masallat, masalla. In English, obelisk. In ancient language, tikhen.
تخن.
Tikhen. And tikhen in ancient language means needle. So when the Greeks came, they translated tikhen to oveleskos. And from oveleskos, we have the English name obelisk. Do you have any idea how many of them, Egyptian needles or Egyptian obelisks, taken from Egypt, standing nowadays outside Egypt?
In America, in France, I saw them.
There's one in France. We will see the sister of this one still standing in Luxor. The one in France, we gave it as gift. The time of Muhammad Ali Pasha, he gave the obelisk as gift to King of France. There is one in London. The one in London, we call it Cleopatra's Needle because the ship they used to take this one from Egypt to England, the name of this ship was Cleopatra. That's why they named it after the ship, Cleopatra's Needle. There is one in Central Park, New York, from here, from Karnak. Turkey has one. Rome has 13.
Oh.
The Romans ruled Egypt after the Greeks. They loved the pillar. They loved it. So they took many of them outside Egypt. We are lucky that we still have some in Egypt. We have two here. We have one in Luxor. There is unfinished one in Aswan, still unfinished, still in the quarry. One in Tahrir Square, and actually Cairo has three, and they moved one from Mataria, I think one in Mataria or Heliopolis. 7, we have 7 in Egypt.
13 in Rome.
اه انا كنت لسه هقول.
So that's 20.
So outside Egypt, more than what we have.
Yeah.
But why they made them? Why they bothered cutting that big block? Granite, by the way, it is one block from Aswan with the beautiful carvings you see on the 4 sides. And the top part of the obelisk used to be covered with electron. It's mixed between silver and gold. So they used to cover the top of the obelisk with silver and gold. So why they bother cutting that block? Nowadays, when you see any building from distance, the building, if this building has minaret, you can tell for sure there is mosque. I can go and pray there. When you see any building with tower and cross, church. So the obelisk back then like that. If you if this is the first time for you in Luxor, sitting the Nile River, coming, seeing the obelisk, you can tell it's landmark for sure. There is temple I can go and worship the god there. So the obelisk, like the minaret, like the tower, landmark. When we stand like that under the sun, we cause shadow. And during the day, the shadow will move. So the obelisk became sundial to tell time. And the top part, they covered it with silver and gold to reflect sun rays and moonshine at night. So it became lighthouse. So using it as sundial, landmark, and lighthouse. There is one more story about the obelisk, the most important one, but I will save this one to the day after tomorrow. Okay? Standing one. It is much bigger than the one on the right, by the way, but when we go and see it from distance, from another angle, it will be much, much bigger than the one on the right side. The one on the left, from the time of Hatshepsut, the famous queen Hatshepsut, 1450 BC, her time. One block, 29 meters, 323 tons. It is one single block. The unfinished one in Aswan from the same time, but unfinished because while cutting it, it cracked. And it had to be one block. So when that happened, no need to finish it. So they left it unfinished. But if they cut it, if they managed cutting the obelisk in Aswan, it would be the largest. This one 29 meters. The one in Aswan is 42 meters. This one 323 tons. The one in Aswan 1,100 tons. So 3 times heavier and 2 times bigger than the one.
So it had to be one
it had
piece.
To be one piece.
Wow.
One
It's not like those columns.
On the way to Aswan, we will have more time on the cruise while sailing. We can sit together to explain to you how they cut it, how they transport it, and how they erected the obelisk. Okay?
Please. Granite.
Yes. This is the color we call the red rose or pink granite.
I think they call it Rosewood or something.
Used to be an obelisk here. Used to be an obelisk the other side. So 2 on each side, one Upper and Lower Egypt. Another one standing here used to be one on the left. There is one on the left, used to be one on the right. So always one on each side. Why we have them here? Because back then, one day where we stand here was the main entrance to go inside Karnak. Used to be 2 towers, and the main gate is to take them inside Karnak. Used to be here, and nothing from here all the way to the Nile River. And remember, they built from inside out, so they kept adding in front of what was already here. Please. Okay, so now if you look at the carving, how deep the carving, you see it on the right side wall. You can tell this wall was built the time of which king? Ramses II. So you see carving that deep, Ramses II.
Because he doesn't want it to be defaced.
My favorite king is Thutmose III. You will know more about him and you will know why tomorrow when we visit the temple of Queen Hatshepsut. He was great leader, he was great warrior. He succeeded Hatshepsut and became the king of Egypt. Thutmose III. Thutmose III, he had the right to be king, but he was only 9 years old when he had that right. Hatshepsut was his stepmother, and she was his mother-in-law, and she was his aunt. To be king, to be king, you have to be the first son from the first wife of the king to be king after your father.
Okay.
So let's say the king had 4 wives. Who had the right to be king? If the first wife of the king had son, he is the one to be the king after his father. It happened a lot that the first wife had just daughters. That's why they allowed marrying half sisters. So if the second or the third or the fourth wife of the king had son, if he married his half sister, the daughter from the first wife, that way he can be the king. Hatshepsut was the first wife of Thutmose II. Her husband, the king, was Thutmose II. She had only one daughter. The second wife of the king had son, Thutmose III. So Thutmose III had to marry the daughter of Queen Hatshepsut, his half-sister, to be the king of Egypt. So she was his stepmother, and she became his mother-in-law. And Thutmose II, his father, had to marry his half-sister. So Hatshepsut was the sister of his father. So he married his half-sister.
أنا معقدة.
And by the way, because of that, they lost many childs. They lost
Yes.
many babies because of
The inbreeding.
Inbreeding.
genetic diseases and many things like that. So they lost many childs. Let's say that Hatshepsut took over the throne from Thutmose III. He married his half-sister, but he was only 9 years old, not old enough to be king. So Hatshepsut shared the throne with him for 9 years. Then she sent him away to Memphis North to have more training and education to be king, and she managed ruling Egypt by herself for 22 years. She added many buildings in Karnak and Luxor, and she built very beautiful temple, unique design, we will see that tomorrow, to Amun-Ra. And she acclaimed that Amun-Ra is my father. She said Amun-Ra had meeting with my mother. I am the daughter of the god. So everyone has to accept me ruling this land. I have the right now. I am the daughter of Amun-Ra.
Love it. I love that they were able to.
And the priests helped
Roll.
here with the story. She built temples. Temples mean people living around temples will come and visit. People will offer. People will pay tax. And 50% from what they collect will stay in the temple. So the priests will get something from that. That's why they accepted her ruling Egypt for that long. And they accepted the story that she is the daughter of Amun-Ra. Thutmose III, when he came back and became king, he did not like what she did to him by sending him away. And she gave order to erase her names and figures from her buildings, but not from the obelisk. The cartouches you see on the obelisk, this one, and you see more around, and the figures you see for Queen Hatshepsut in front of Amun-Ra. But you will see her as king. You will see her just like Ramesses, with the same outfit, with the same false beard. The only way to tell us this is Hatshepsut the cartouche. To show everyone I'm strong like any king. She used to dress like kings, and she had beard, and she gave order to make for herself tomb in the valley of the kings, not the valley of the queens. When she was just the wife of the king, they started making for her tomb in the valley of the queens. But when she actually ruled Egypt, she gave order, make for myself tomb in the valley of the kings.
She's cool. She's my hero.
The blocks you see around the obelisk, to hide the obelisk, actually used to be wall like around the obelisk, built by Thutmose III to hide the obelisk in here, because he was not able to destroy the obelisk. It is made out of granite, and the obelisk was for Amun-Ra, symbol of Amun-Ra. He did not dare to destroy it. Too much work. So what he did, he gave order to hide it by the wall around it. And another obelisk used to be on the right side. Another wall used to be around the obelisk, also was built by Thutmose III. So he did not destroy the obelisk. The beard, the outfit, the cartouches, many signs to make you sure the one you see in front of you is the king. And one of the most important signs to be sure this one is king, when you see his majesty with tail. Look between his legs. You see the tail? tail هو المفروض قاعد الديل يبقى وراه بس هم عايزين يوروه الديل فهم. But look at the figure. You see it clear here. The king has the skirt, the kilt, but you see the tail. You see that?
طب ليه بيعملوا لهم زي؟
So I've seen that before, but I never asked why.
Cool. The tail, the king had to show everyone I'm fit, I'm strong, to protect this land. So His Majesty had to run between here and Luxor, the Sphinx's Avenue, and they had something like that in Saqqara between two buildings twice. Like running between Karnak and Luxor twice, and after that he had to fight strong bull. But no one was allowed to see His Majesty running and fighting. His Majesty is divine, he is the son of the god, Amun-Ra. So the next morning, the
priests will gather everyone and tell them, His Majesty did it. He ran twice, we saw him, and he killed the bull, and we gave him the tail after that. So the king, by walking with the tail, to show everyone, I did it, everyone. I ran twice between Karnak and Luxor, and am strong enough that I killed the bull. I have his tail, so I am ready to protect your land. Just propaganda. So Ramses II, imagine 95 years, still walking with the tail, showing everyone I'm strong and fit to protect the land. The story of the cobra, the snake. Cobra doesn't have eyelids. They don't shut eyes. They have just tough transparent membrane to protect the eyeball from dust to get inside the eye. So the Egyptians have noticed that, and they needed the king to be ready the whole time to protect the land. We sleep, the king will shut his eyes, but the cobra will be open the whole time for protection. So you see the king sitting here and the cobra on the forehead? Where? On enemies. Not you, but look about what we have on the wall.
I even noticed the difference.
You see the enemies as we saw them on the floor outside with long hair and beards and hands tied. Not cartouches. Cartouche always has something to stand on, like the line, the base you see there. This is cartouche. But we have here, we don't have kings, they are enemies. But they are showing where the enemy is coming from. The towns and the villages where the enemies are coming from. They are Syrians. And by the way, some of the villages and towns nowadays still the same names as in ancient time. If you look, this one. This letter in ancient Egyptian language, the basket is letter K. K. The lion is letter L. This is letter I. L again and I. So K-L-I, Khalili. Al-Khalil in Palestine. If you look at this one, when you have two feathers, you make Y, the sound Y. L, the lion. The little chicken here is W, and the half circle here is T. The other way. Yelut, which is Elat in Israel. So, talking about ancient Syria, remember Syria, Lebanon, Medina, Palestine.
That was Syria.
Exactly. لا اكسس ده موضوع ثاني دروعاتهم نفس المنطقة بس I'm talking قبليهم. The one you see on the right side is lotus. Lotus, you can use lotus, the flower, to make oils, to get oils, perfumes from lotus.
Okay.
And that's to feed the soul. When you smell that, you feed your soul with very beautiful smell. Papyrus, you can use the reeds to make paper.
Yes.
And that's what they used in ancient time to feed the brain. So one to feed the soul and the other one to feed the brain, representing upper and lower. Lotus is upper, papyrus is lower. When we talk upper and lower, we're talking about the topography of the land. Upper is south and lower is north. Upper, that's why you see lotus facing south, and lower, you see papyrus facing the other side, north. And when you see them together, this is the way to show how Egypt is united. Upper and lower Egypt together. He went to India, maybe he died on the way. We didn't discover his tomb yet. His brother, Philip Radius, succeeded him and ruled Egypt.
Nowhere to go.
يلا نقف نصور
He knows so much. Even if he's lying to me. Even if
كلنا
it's fake facts. Yeah, you're over it? Yeah. No?
Mama, should I get it?
Huh? Are you okay?
What are you talking about?